Hi. I wanted to talk about today's lesson. So let's see here. Today's the 30th, and we are in Unit 3 now. And Unit 3 is going to be about multiplying fractions by other fractions, and then dividing fractions by whole numbers and dividing whole numbers by fractions. So today was our first lesson, and the lesson started out by presenting students with a pan of macaroni and cheese, and they were asked how much macaroni and cheese is left, and students recognized that the amount of macaroni and cheese is less than 1, and so various estimates that students offered: 1/3, 1/4, 2/5, 1/2, and it was encouraging to see students really apply their fraction sense to a real situation. So after we discussed the picture of the macaroni and cheese, students were given a situation. They were told that a pan of macaroni and cheese is halfway full, so half of the macaroni and cheese is absent from the pan, whether it's been eaten or thrown out, we're not sure. And then they were posed with this question: if you were to eat 1/3 of the remaining macaroni and cheese, how much of the whole pan would you have eaten? And so students were asked to draw a diagram representing the situation here. And so this rectangle here represents a whole pan of macaroni and cheese, but we're told that half of the pan is present. So we have half a pan of macaroni and cheese. So here's our starting situation here. We got half a pan of macaroni and cheese. But if you were to eat 1/3 of that half, we would need to divide that half into thirds. And so you would end up eating a piece of the macaroni and cheese that's about that large compared to the whole pan. And so that leads to the question of how much of the whole pan did I eat, or what size is this piece here? Well, students kind of wrestled with this idea for a while, but what many students realized was, if we look at this half here of the pan, we can assume that the empty part, or the other half of the pan, could also be divided into thirds. And once that was done, students realized that this piece was one out of a total of 6 pieces. And so the answer then is that that piece would represent 1/6 of the whole pan. Now the next task students worked through was drawing a diagram that shows 1/4 of 1/2, and then figuring out what is 1/4 of 1/2, or what fractional amount represents 1/4 of 1/2. So again, students started by drawing a rectangle that represented a whole, and since we want to figure out 1/4 of a half, we need to divide this whole into 2 halves, and I'll shade one of those halves in here. And since we want to find 1/4 of that half, all we have to do is simply divide that half into 4 equal pieces. So that's a diagram. Oh, and it helps to shade one of those pieces in. Sorry about that. So this is showing 1/4 of a half. This diagram is. But what is 1/4 of a half? Well, once again, we need to understand that this piece here would have to be replicated a certain number of times to make up one whole. And as one student went up to the board today, he measured each of these spaces, kind of using his fingers like this, and what he realized was, if I can divide this half into 4 equal pieces, I can do the same over here, and so this would be 1 piece out of 8. And so 1/4 of 1/2 gives us the fraction 1/8. Now, before students left today, this was a question that I had them do independently, and this was done so that I could check their work and monitor the level of understanding they have. The situation is there's a pan of macaroni and cheese that, again, is halfway full, and you eat 1/5 of the remaining macaroni and cheese. So how much of the whole pan did you eat? And by now, students, we're very comfortable representing a whole pan as a rectangle. And they were also comfortable with representing half of the pan by dividing the whole into 2 equal pieces and shading one of those pieces in. But because we want to find 1/5 of that half, this 1/2 needed to be divided into 5 equal pieces. And so from this diagram, we can determine what size piece this is. What fraction is represented by this piece? What fraction of the whole? And so if they mentally extended these division lines here, or drew them out like I am here, they would recognize that this is one piece out of a total of 10 that it would take to make up the whole. So the fraction that represents 1/5 of 1/2 is 1/10. And I was very pleased that the vast majority of students were able to, at the very least, draw a diagram that was correct, that matched the situation. Obviously, the more abstract part of this that some students are still working to wrap their minds around is understanding that this is not 1/5, but that this is 1/10, because it would take 10 of these equal-sized pieces to make up the whole. So I'm going to, if anyone is interested in trying some of these on their own, and I'm sorry, here are 3 questions that you could try. So we're finding fractions of a fraction, we're finding part of a fraction. So you could pause the video to copy these down and work through them. And then later, I will work these problems out, and you'll be able to see what the correct answer is. And I will post this next follow-up video, I should say, to remind. I recommend starting out with diagrams. Of course, some students have already picked up on a generalization or a pattern of how to quickly evaluate these problems. And if your child picks up on that generalization, that's wonderful. And obviously that would be a much more efficient way to work through these. But it's always good to start out concrete with a concept, and then once the concept is understood and internalized, then using more abstract procedures can help quicken things and make solving these types of problems more efficient. As always, if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to use Remind to reach out to me, or email me. And I will get back with you within a day, but I try to get back with you as soon as possible. I hope this video helps, and I appreciate you watching.